And Nancy Pelosi thought a federal prison was going to break me. Well, it empowered me. God bless you. It empowered me. I am more empowered today, more focused today, sharper today, in better shape today than I've ever been in my entire life. So Nancy Pelosi, suck on that.
Steve Bannon just got released from federal prison by basically being a political prisoner, and this is his first press conference. It's about 45 minutes. We're going to show you guys some of the best clips from it. It's not a whole emotional hype train like a lot of these other political videos, but it's very measured, real, and it has fortitude and power behind it because it comes from a place of intelligence that Steve has, you can tell, but also excitement, determination, and focused, as we just saw in that preview clip. Hope you guys enjoy. It's itsSeanDaniel here. If you like the videos, consider subscribing. Now let's get into the best moments from this press conference.
Thank you for coming. You know, I put a, and I think Raheem Kassam has just put it up. The first statement I think I made from Danbury was about 4 weeks ago, September 26th. I said, victory is at hand. That you can see the collapse of this kind of phony campaign by Kamala Harris, the politics of joy, right? And she had nothing to back it up whatsoever. And you could see the beginning in the polls start to come our way. I'm very proud that the war room has had President Trump's back, and particularly has been the platform for the grassroots movement to have their voice heard. And I said at that time that with the hard work of the Get Out the Vote effort and the election integrity effort, that we were on the cusp of having an incredible victory that could actually be a potential landslide. Now we come to today, and I'm finally out of being a political prisoner by the Merrick Garland, Kamala Harris, Nancy Pelosi regime. Okay, for standing up for my political beliefs against an illegitimate committee in the House that did not have a ranking member, it did not have minority counsel. I went to a federal prison for 4 months. Now, Nancy Pelosi and Kamala Harris and Merrick Garland thought they were going to do two things. Number one, they were going to shut down the war room and not have that as a voice for the grassroots movement of MAGA in this country. And number two, break me. Well, I think you can see today I'm far from broken. I've been empowered by my 4 months at Danbury Federal Prison. Why was it empowered? Because I was able to listen, to observe, and to learn from working class minorities, young African American men and Hispanic men, and yes, Puerto Rican men, about what their lives are and what the queen of mass incarcerations, which is what they believe that Kamala Harris is. She refuses, and she has refused as border czar, to commence any mass deportations of illegal alien or illegal migrant criminals in this country. And today, President Trump and the Angel Moms actually had to say, we need to set up a form of restitution to reimburse these folks. Kamala Harris, Vice President Harris, as the border czar, has refused to do that and continue on the mass incarcerations. Now, President Trump...
Imagine what it was like being in that prison for him, why it was so impactful, to just see firsthand really what these guys believe about Kamala Harris. That's way different than any poll he could read, anything he could see online, any research he could digest. But seeing firsthand just how many men associate Kamala Harris with the truth of her incarceration record, because they have trouble possibly getting out. And as he's going to allude to in a second, how many hurdles these guys have to getting out of prison early, even though they qualify to get out early through the First Step Act, which Trump passed, which is a complex reasoning and political game. Steve's going to break it down.
and quite frankly, with the visionary leadership at the time of Jared Kushner, President Trump came with the most significant prison reform bill ever created, the First Step Act. And today, 6 years after, and 4 years into the Biden regime, of which Biden in 2020 promised and committed to dramatically decrease the number of incarcerations in federal prisons, and nothing has been done. Nothing has been done. You know, this is criminal negligence by the highest, at the highest levels of BOP, Bureau of Prisons, and the Justice Department. You have particularly minorities, African Americans, and Hispanic men and their families being broken, rotting in federal prisons, when the First Step Act is very clear of what's supposed to happen, and all they do is get spun and spun and spun. The system is broken. Bureau of Prisons is broken. This is not about Danbury, and not about the individual. Many good individuals working at Danbury Federal Prison. The system of the BOP, the system of the Justice Department is broken. They have weaponized the Justice Department against a political movement, a conservative grassroots movement that's had President Trump's back, and from the dark days of February, March, and April of 2021 is on the cusp of the biggest political comeback in the history of this nation, led by grassroots people, everyday Americans, including, as we know now from the polling, and the reason I said we're on the cusp of a massive victory, she is failing to connect with minority men, Hispanic and African American men. Now, why is that? They understand what the scam is. They understand that this administration purposely let in millions of illegal alien migrants, illegal aliens, to drive down labor costs. The Federal Reserve said it from the very beginning. We're going to drive down labor inflation by getting more unskilled workers here and putting pressure on the lowest skilled sector we have. And they were successful, and they brag about being successful. The minority community understands that. They understand the scam and the con of what Kamala Harris has done.
Just like we've seen in some previous videos of especially black men being irritated about the lack of the less money they're able to receive because of the Venezuelan gangs, the other illegal minorities coming in from South America, from Latin America, and taking their different gigs, maybe they're drug dealing sometimes, but even just labor work, they can't get as much money. And they see through that. They see through the fake hope, the fake joy, as he calls it, the joy, campaign of joy, policy of joy, of, oh, we care about illegals, we care about everyone. Well, a lot of minorities see through it because they know it directly means you're not caring about them.
In addition, she has failed to do, for political reasons. The reason the First Step Act is not implemented among minorities is because Kamala Harris and Merrick Garland and Joe Biden in the White House and Nancy Pelosi understand it to be a massive political win for President Trump. Like in sitting in the Situation Room and knowing this, when Brett Baer asked her, a week Situation Room, I don't think she's done it in this regard. And I think some of her strengths, particularly in areas that she should have been in, like in sitting in the Situation Room and knowing this, when Brett Baer asked her a week ago, what is the number one geopolitical threat to the United States? What is the United States' number one competitor on the world stage? And she instantly said Iran. And Brett Baer tried to help her, and he says, well, some people say China. Hint, hint. She says, oh no, Iran. If you say that Iran is the number one, a regional power, is the number one threat to the United States of America, given what the Chinese Communist Party, which is a mortal enemy, not the Chinese people and not the nation of China, but the Chinese Communist Party, a mortal enemy of the United States. If you sit there and want to be commander-in-chief, and you say the number one threat when you have a chance to back off and say it's Iran, you're not ready to be commander-in-chief. And clearly you haven't learned anything or anything important in your 4 years as vice president sitting in the Situation Room.
Which also tells you that Joe Biden probably is not giving teachable moments on how to handle the Situation Room because he's so out of it. That was a great real answer by Steve Bannon right there. If she's immediately jumping to say Iran, how inept is she to not even realize who our real enemy is, and even to say it, even if she does know it, why not say it honestly to the American people, because they will actually connect with that? Or is she just playing a political game because the people above her want to try to win some war with Iran and be on the side of Israel? That was a deep one.
Kamala Harris, the Biden regime, Merrick Garland, Nancy Pelosi weaponized the justice system in this country against their political opponents. I am proud that I went as a political prisoner to Danbury Prison. I served my country on a Navy destroyer in my 20s, and I served my country in a federal prison in my 70s. If you're not prepared to be thrown in prison by this weaponized Justice Department, then you're not prepared to stand up and fight for your country. And I will never back down from that.
70 years old, getting tossed into federal prison, basically because he's been taking a stand. That's tough. And that's really how it's become now with the way the Justice Department and the FBI and the whole thing over there is working. Next, Steve is going to break down just how uneducated Kamala Harris's geopolitical knowledge is about the landscape of the world, how the U.S. affects it, our enemies, and which then makes her unqualified to be the President of the United States, that she can't even handle this basic thing. Steve breaks it down.
In this regard. And I think some of her strengths, you know, particularly in areas that she should have been in, like in sitting in the Situation Room and knowing this, when Brett Baer asked her a week ago, what is the number one geopolitical threat to the United States? What is the United States' number one competitor on the world stage? And she instantly said Iran. And Brett Baer tried to help her, and he says, well, you know, some people say China. Hint, hint. She says, oh no, Iran. If you say that Iran is the number one, a regional power, is the number one threat to the United States of America, given what the Chinese Communist Party, which is a mortal enemy, not the Chinese people and not the nation of China, but the Chinese Communist Party, a mortal enemy of the United States. If you sit there and want to be commander-in-chief, and you say the number one threat, when you have a chance to back off and say it's Iran, you're not ready to be commander-in-chief. And clearly you haven't learned anything or anything important in your 4 years as vice president sitting in the Situation Room.
And not only that, she possibly didn't have as many learnable moments in the Situation Room, because we know Joe Biden was not really running the country. But even then, she could learn from the handlers, from the decision makers, what's really going on in the world. But no, she immediately jumps to the probably political answer she's supposed to give so that we can build more support for Israel and look at Iran as this super enemy. But if she can't even just be honest on that, even if she does know that it's China, if she's being disingenuous by giving us a fake answer, it shows that her campaign's plan is stupid, because just if she was honest with us and explained some of the negatives of China, a lot of voters would be like, wow, yeah, that makes sense, okay. But she sticks with the political game plan of fake, 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 as Steve breaks down.
The desperation of Kamala Harris and in her campaign is obvious. They went from the politics of joy, and we were the first ones to call it, to darkness and night falls on America, and they pivoted hard. You know why? Her incoherent explanation for what the politics of joy is befuddled everybody. So she had to go back to the same playbook. Trump's a fascist. His followers are not deplorables, they're fascists. That they're a danger to the country. Well, you know who doesn't buy this? Working class people don't buy it. and particularly African American and Hispanic men do not buy it. I had a great opportunity at Danbury, and I want to thank the Education Department of Danbury Correctional Institution for.
They do not buy it. Why do they not buy it? Because they see how it they see how having illegal migrants come in, drop the wages of labor costs. They see how that directly affects them, despite the false claim that the Democrat Party cares about minorities. They see that it takes away from their ability to survive and get business and get paid. And a lot of Americans can see through this. And see, I love how Steve breaks down, why did she pivot from this happy joy politic plan of we care about minorities, we're the people, we're the group for the people, to this hate-filled, mean thing, which you guys can watch in some of my other videos that Kamala Harris, Tim Walz, Joe Biden just all went in on. Why would they pivot like that? Because the campaign strategy of the fake joy was not working. So they had to go really all in on this negative thing. Because if you watch, every time she has a question about policy or something, she brings it back to how bad Trump is.
To the day that much that you see on television is just professional wrestling when it comes to politics, and is not the thing itself. And I can report to you that these young men, most of whom are nonviolent drug offenders that have, quite frankly, a lot of years in prison, these people came to this with a new awakening, and that is the awakening the American people are going through. The system is not only broken, the system is rigged against the working class of this nation. And I saw at Danbury that we're going to move past the politics of race with an intermediate stop in the politics of gender, which is being forced on everybody right now. We're going to get to what is important, and that's the politics of money. And once we get to the politics of money, there's going to be some fundamental changes in this country. I want to thank you folks for coming. I'm far from broken, and I appreciate you guys attending. And I will tell you, if President Trump's grassroots forces combine as we can combine right now, you're going to see unbelievable numbers next Tuesday. However, the Democrats are not going to give up. They just hired Mark Elias. And you only hire Mark Elias, who I think is the toughest election lawyer in the country. You only hire Mark Elias when you want to go to the mattresses. They understand they can't beat us at the ballot box. We're going to have a reprise of 2020, where they're going to try to do everything humanly possible to nullify Trump's election and delegitimize his second term. And I can tell you right now that the working class people in this country, the middle class people in this country that support Donald John Trump are not going to let that happen. We'll take some questions.
Okay, so
That means the Democrats are already preparing for a victory possibly on Trump's side. They're going to do anything they can to overthrow it. Arizona's already said they're going to take maybe up to 20 days to count their election results. We're hearing other reports of how a lot of issues in Pennsylvania, which I have on my channel, one of those videos, with the voting machines, the ballot boxes, stuff like that. They're already trying, they can't win at the ballot box, so they have to do something else to win. But thankfully, Steve's out. He can keep shining a light on this to a lot of people in a non-emotional, logical way so we can see what's going on. And from what Steve has to say, it sounds like there's a lot more support for Trump through the minorities. And it's great to see Steve so focused and I bet ready to go after getting abused like that and thrown in prison. Next clip ties back to the geopolitical impact of the President of the United States and the standards they set and how it spreads to the rest of the world. I'm someone who's living in Europe right now, and I'm seeing firsthand the lack of leadership of the states affect Europe's tremendously horrendous migration situation where they allow tons and tons of illegals in because of the elites in Europe just caving to whoever's standards it is to allow all these illegals in, tear down the quality of the country. This might not be that interesting to you guys, but it does have a big worldwide impact, and Steve's going to break it down right here.
Thank you, Yes, ma'am. Wall Street Journal. A message for Europe is that, you know, President Trump's been a great friend of NATO to make sure the NATO alliance is actually funded by countries in Europe. I would say that the populist nationalist movement over there that's on the march, is on the rise, should look at what's happening in the United States of America, particularly against the elites in this country, and how with very little money, every day we're building. Like I said, we're going to move past race here. You're going to see historic numbers, I think, of African American and Hispanic men that do not vote for a Democratic candidate. So we can move past these things that held us back in the past and get to the sunlit uplands of talking about power and control and money.
You can't really hear it, so I'm not going to play it, but I'll say it. There's a reporter that asks, why is Europe so afraid of Donald Trump? Why are they paying so much attention to this election? This is Steve's answer.
I'm not sure Europeans are so afraid, but that European elites are so afraid.
Very
There's
true.
a big difference.
Very true.
There's a big difference. Number one, the European elites, the elites and the wealthy in Europe have not paid their fair share. Right? Listen, our defense budget is almost $1 trillion a year. A lot of that goes into NATO and supporting allies throughout the world. That we need our allies to pitch in, particularly the wealthy allies in Europe. Europe does not carry its weight on its defense. And if Europeans are so concerned about Putin and KGB and the Russians, they're going to have to step up to the plate and be even a bigger part. And President Trump, and Stoltenberg said this, there wouldn't be a NATO today if it was not for President Trump and what President Trump did in assisting NATO to actually start to pay more of its fair share. The European elites, of course they hate Trump because they understand President Trump is a populist nationalist. They understand about what he's talking about is trade. They understand what he's talking about tariffs. They understand he puts American citizens first, and he puts American citizens' economic benefit first. So if I was an elite in Europe, yeah, I would be quite concerned about Donald Trump because, number one, it's going to inspire populist movements throughout Europe to actually get off the dime and start winning elections and winning them big.
Which is already happening. A lot of people love Trump out here, and they're sick of the leaders, just like we have in the States, doing things against the citizens' desires, allowing floods of illegal migrants in. It is ridiculous here in Europe. And it's now inspiring these people like Viktor Orban of Hungary, who, if you literally try to cross the border as an illegal in Hungary, okay, a country in kind of Eastern Europe, mid-Europe, I guess. If you try to cross into that country illegally, you get shot at the border. Like, there's no games. It's already inspiring that. He's taking a stand. There's more. Germany's coming together. But in the States, Trump's example can have a worldwide impact, not only in the States, an impact in the States that's garnered so much support and movement power to win elections, but it can go around the world and eradicate so many liberal, corrupt games that are being played with policy to keep people in power, to do whatever. It's very true. Hope you guys enjoyed some of these clips. It's itsSeanDaniel here, and I'll see you in the next one, or you can watch another one right here. It's itsSeanDaniel here. If you guys enjoy the videos, consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one, or you can watch one of these. See ya.